The Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Pride Seeds, Nodulator Pro, and Cruiser Max Vibrance Beans.
Well, in general, the caterpillar has been around. This year, it seems we're getting a lot more calls on people seeing painted lady caterpillar, and we're getting calls particularly because they're seeing them in soybeans. Historically, in pulses, you can see the caterpillar, and it's called a thistle caterpillar as well, and it tends to feed on Canada thistle, which makes it a good thing. It doesn't tend to feed on your crop like lentil or pea, so it doesn't cause any damage to the crop. What is happening this year, as the population is a little bit higher, or so we've been getting calls, is that people are seeing the caterpillar in their soybeans, and soybean is a crop that the caterpillar will feed on. So we're getting questions around what are the thresholds, what kind of damage can it do, and should they be spraying for the thistle caterpillar in their soybean crop.
So can you explain the damage that it does do to the plant?
It will feed off of the foliage. So there is some leaf damage that we can see and some feeding. We don't have a lot of research that's been done specifically in Saskatchewan in terms of economic threshold, but if we look at some of the results out of the US during the flowering stage, what they're finding is that around 25% foliar damage is about an economic threshold where you may want to consider looking at some control. But lower than that, there's not necessarily a lot of economic advantage into controlling the caterpillar in your soybeans. Soybeans can take some defoliation without a lot of impact on yield.
So you said right now it's mostly in soybeans. Do you see it spreading to other crops, or will it stay there?
What we find is, in terms of crops that they like to feed off, it tends to be soybeans or sunflowers, which we just don't have a lot of acres, and then otherwise it likes to stay on that Canada thistle.
So when producers are calling in asking about it, what's the number one thing you're telling, the big message you're trying to get out?
I think just really looking at the amount of damage that you have and if it's economic to spray or not, and to take into considerations things like your beneficial pests that you may be controlling at the same time. So, this thistle caterpillar, it will feed off of Canada thistle, which makes it a good pest in those crops, but we certainly don't want to see yield loss in your soybeans. So it's really considering what beneficials you might impact if you're spraying for it, versus, if it's not going to cause a lot of damage, then maybe it's best to leave it, and, if it's not going to have a yield impact on your soybeans.
And is this the first year you're kind of seeing it on soybeans?
This is the first year that I've been hearing calls about it in soybeans. So like mentioned earlier, there's likely more of them out there this year, but also it's likely an impact of the acres of soybeans that we've got out in the field this year. So with a significant increase in acres in Saskatchewan, more soybeans, new crop to a lot of growers, this is something that they're seeing that's new to them, seeing damage in the crop.
Okay, anything you'd like to add about it?
Again, it can be a beneficial pest, as that it can help control some Canada thistle. So you definitely keep that in mind if you're looking at considering spraying an insecticide and what impact that may have on your beneficials. But going back and scouting your crop and seeing what's there is just going to be important to managing that.